Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy sharing my personal heartbreak online, but here I am, needing to get this off my chest. My name is Ryan, I'm 38, and I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 12 years. We have a 10-year-old son, Jake, and what I thought was a happy, stable life. But things changed this summer in ways I never saw coming. It all started when an old family friend, Evan, came to stay with us for the summer. He's 22, just graduated college, and is one of Jake's favorite people. He's been around since Jake was little, practically like a big brother to him. Emily and I agreed to let him stay while he looked for a job in the city. It seemed like a win-win. Jake would have a great summer with his buddy, and we could help Evan get on his feet. First, it was fine. Evan fit right in, helping around the house, playing video games with Jake, and even cooking dinner a few nights. He had this easygoing charm that made everyone like him. I wasn't worried at all when Emily started spending time with him, helping him polish his resume or driving him to job interviews. She's always been kind and nurturing. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with her. But then, things started to feel off. One night, I woke up around midnight and realized Emily wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs on the couch, laughing softly at something on her phone. When I asked what she was doing, she said she couldn't sleep and was just scrolling social media. It seemed harmless enough, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. A few days later, I noticed a strange perfume scent on her clothes when she hugged me goodbye. It wasn't hers. I know the one she always wears. When I asked about it, she brushed it off, saying she must have walked past someone at the store. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me there was more to the story. The biggest red flag came one evening when Emily told me she was taking Evan out to celebrate after he landed his first interview. I was all for it, until she came home hours later, smelling like wine and with her lipstick smudged. She barely looked at me as she walked past, mumbling something about being tired. I wanted to confront her right then, but I held back. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Emily would never hurt me like that. But the doubts kept eating away at me, and I knew I couldn't ignore them forever. After that night, I couldn't ignore the growing tension in the house. Emily seemed distracted, always checking her phone, slipping out of rooms to take calls. When I asked who it was, she'd casually say, "Just work stuff," or, "It's nothing important." But her smile didn't reach her eyes, and her tone felt rehearsed. Evan, meanwhile, acted completely normal, too normal even. He was his usual cheerful self, always joking with Jake, helping out, and acting like the perfect houseguest. If there was something going on, he hid it well. But I couldn't shake the suspicion. One evening, I noticed something that chilled me. Emily and Evan were in the backyard, sitting on the patio with a bottle of wine between them. From the window, I watched as she laughed at something he said, leaning a little too close, brushing her hair behind her ear in that way she used to do when we were dating. It was subtle, but it was there, an energy between them I couldn't ignore. When I stepped outside, their conversation stopped abruptly. Emily straightened up, her face flushed. "Hey, honey," she said quickly, almost too cheerfully. "We were just talking about his job interview tomorrow." I nodded, pretending to buy it, but my stomach churned. The way Evan avoided my eyes said everything I needed to know. A week later, Emily said she had to work late. It wasn't unusual. She sometimes stayed late during busy times at her office. But something didn't sit right with me. On a whim, I drove past her office around 9 p.m. The building was dark. That night, she came home at almost midnight, her hair slightly messy and her makeup smudged again. "Long day," she muttered, heading straight for the shower. That was when I started to connect the dots. The late nights, the secretive behavior, the way Evan seemed to avoid being in the same room as me for too long. It all pointed to one possibility. But I wasn't ready to believe it. Not yet. The final straw came a few days later. I was cleaning up around the house while Emily and Evan were out. In the laundry room, I found a shirt I didn't recognize, tossed casually on top of the pile. It wasn't mine and it wasn't Jake's. It was a size I didn't wear, one of those trendy slim-fit ones that guys like Evan favored. I held it up, my hands trembling. the faint smell of Emily's perfume clinging to the fabric. I wanted to scream, to throw it in her face and demand answers, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed proof, real, undeniable proof. So I waited. A few nights later, I got my proof. I set up a small camera in the living room, aimed at the couch. It wasn't something I ever thought I'd do in my marriage, but I was desperate. Emily had told me she and Evan were going to watch a movie after Jake went to bed, and I made up an excuse to work late. When I came home, the house was quiet. Emily was in bed, and Evan's door was closed. Everything looked normal, but I knew I had to check the footage. What I saw made my blood run cold. At first, it was innocent, just the two of them sitting on the couch watching the movie. But then, Emily leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. He hesitated for a moment, looking nervous, but then wrapped his arm around her. They sat like that for a while, whispering and laughing softly, the kind of laughter she used to share with me. Then, she kissed him. It wasn't a quick, innocent kiss. It was long, passionate, the kind of kiss that made it clear this wasn't the first time. My hands shook as I fast-forwarded through the footage, watching as they grew bolder, touching and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, like I didn't exist. Couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up, replaying the video, the betrayal cutting deeper with every frame. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Had I missed the signs? Was it my fault? By the time the sun rose, I was numb. The next morning, I decided to confront her. I waited until Jake was at school and Evan had gone out. Emily was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee, scrolling on her phone like it was just another day. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking. She looked up, her smile faltering when she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting her cup down. I took a deep breath and placed my phone on the table, pressing play on the video. Her face went pale as she watched, her hand flying to her mouth. "Ryan," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I can explain." "Don't," I snapped, my voice rising. "Don't insult me with excuses. I trusted you, Emily. I trusted you with everything." Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing, just a cold, hollow emptiness. "Was it worth it?" I asked. Was throwing away 12 years, our family, our son's trust, was it worth it for him? "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "It wasn't supposed to happen, it just did. I didn't mean to hurt you, but she had. She'd destroyed everything we'd built, everything I thought we had." I stood there, staring at Emily as she broke down, tears streaming down her face. Her words, "I didn't mean to hurt you," rang hollow. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand why. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized I wasn't just angry, I was done. "Evan needs to leave," I said flatly. My voice was calm, eerily so. Emily froze, her sobbing halting as she looked at me, eyes wide. "What?" she stammered. "You heard me. He's leaving today. I'll pack his things if I have to, but he's gone." Emily nodded slowly, like a scolded child, and I walked away. I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. As I headed to my office, my mind raced. I knew this was only the beginning. Kicking Evan out was the easy part. Deciding what to do with my marriage was the real challenge. By the afternoon, Evan was gone. Emily told Jake some excuse about Evan needing to move closer to his new job. Jake seemed disappointed but didn't press for details. It was the kind of lie that only deepened the chasm between us. That night, after Jake went to bed, Emily came into the living room. She sat across from me, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. "Ryan," she began, her voice trembling. "I know I've destroyed everything, but I love you. I love our family. Please can we talk? Can we fix this? Fix this?" I repeated, my voice cold. "Emily, you didn't break a vase. You shattered my trust, our family, everything we've built. I don't even know who you are anymore." She flinched, but I wasn't done. "How long?" I demanded. "How long has this been going on?" Emily hesitated, then whispered, "Since last summer, when we visited his family and he came back with us." The words hit me like a freight train. An entire year. All the moments we'd shared, the holidays, the laughter. It had all been a lie. A year of betrayal right under my nose. I can't do this, I said, standing up. I can't just pretend this never happened. Ryan, please, she begged, grabbing my arm. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I pulled my arm away. Maybe you should have thought about that before you brought him into our lives, and into our bed. Her face crumpled, but I felt no sympathy. I walked out, needing air, needing space to think. Over the next few days, I barely spoke to Emily. She tried everything. Apologies, promises, even begging. But my mind was made up. I contacted a lawyer and began the process of filing for divorce. The final twist came a week later, when Evan called me. At first, I ignored it, but his persistence wore me down. When I finally answered, his voice was quiet, almost nervous. Ryan, I need to tell you something, he said. I didn't want to, but Emily said, well, she said she told you already. Told me what? I snapped. There was a long pause before he answered, his voice trembling. Emily's pregnant, and she says it's mine. The world spun. My legs buckled, and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. I barely heard what else he said. I hung up, my mind reeling. When I confronted Emily, her silence confirmed it. She was pregnant, and it wasn't mine. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. Whatever love I had left for her was gone, replaced by a cold, hollow void. I moved out a week later, leaving the house and custody arrangements for the lawyers to sort out. Jake doesn't know everything yet. Just that Mom and Dad need time apart. Someday I'll have to explain. As for Emily and Evan, I heard through the grapevine that she ended things with him after the pregnancy news became public. Apparently, Evan wasn't ready to be a father. The irony was almost laughable. Now I'm focusing on Jake, on rebuilding my life, and on finding peace. The pain of betrayal doesn't fade easily, but I'm learning to live with it and learning to let go. Some scars never fully heal, but they teach you one thing: never ignore the signs again.